Hey, what's up, y'all? This is William, the permaculture consultant, and one of my absolute biggest pet peeves is when I buy a tool that's supposed to be sharp and it comes with a doggone safety edge. Today, I'm going to show you guys how to sharpen some of your tools. All right, since I mentioned the sharpening video, a lot of you guys, which thankfully a lot of you guys have commented down below tools that you would like to see sharpened. Now, with so many tools being mentioned and a wide variety of tools being mentioned, I decided to break this, I guess, I'm going to turn this into a playlist, and I'm going to do groupings of tools at a time. So that way, if somebody is trying to find out like about a specific tool, they don't have to go to like through, you know, however many hours worth of footage that would actually turn out to be. So this first grouping is going to be axes, machetes, and knives. I'm going to sharpen this Mora knife right here. This is the carbon steel version. The reason I'm doing Mora is because somebody specifically said, help, I got a Mora and I've tried sharpening it a few times and it gets worse and worse, something along those lines. So we're going to sharpen a Mora today. Also, whenever I talk about the axes, I'm going to do a regular flat grind on this axe. And because this is my carving axe, I have a bit of a compound grind. On this side, which I'm right-handed, so on this side of the wood would be this side of the axe is the side of the axe that comes into contact with the piece that I'm carving. So I want this side to be flat, almost Scandi grind. And then I want this side to be a compound grind. So as I throw the axe at the piece of wood, I can come up really close to the edge of my lines if I'm drawing using a template or something like that with this flat grind, and then this compound grind on the outside pushes the part that I'm cutting away from the piece, I guess, if that makes sense. It helps a lot with carving. It's not very specific to a lot of axes, a lot of hewing axes as well. And they also have like a handle that's bent out to the side a little as well. But on most of your axes, like this one right here, this Woodsman's axe, you're not going to have any crazy grinds or anything like that. You might have a flat grind or a compound grind, but it's not going to be one is different than the other. One side is different than the other. The first thing I'm going to start with is the knife, because a lot of the principles that you follow when sharpening knives is going to be applied with all of the other tools that you learn how to sharpen. Really, if you can get this part down, if you can get sharpening a knife down, there's not a single tool that you can't sharpen, given the correct equipment. Because there are some super steels that require like diamond plates and stuff like that. This carbon steel is not considered a super steel. This VG10 on this Spyderco is not considered a super steel. This S35 VN on this White River might be on the border. You might need a diamond hone or a honing block or a diamond plate or something like that to get a really nice polish on there. The super steels I'm talking about are like this Magna Cut right here. Like this, I don't think you're going to be able to sharpen without diamond plates or a diamond honing block or something like that. And you know, Harbor Freight to the rescue again, you can actually get a diamond four-sided diamond honing block for like 11 bucks. This isn't going to be something you want to use on high-end knives, but it's definitely going to get you to something sharp for sure. So before we get too far into the video, I'm going to show you some of the options when it comes to sharpening knives. There are some very cheap and economic ways to do it, like this $11.99, I believe. Diamond hone block. You can get that, and I would also recommend at the very minimum have this and a honing block. This is just a 2x4 with some leather glued to it and then some jeweler's rouge. So with these two you can sharpen everything that we're going to sharpen today. Now, the downside of using just these two, or especially this, is that you're going to have to learn a new skill. You're going to have to build muscle memory with this. And the only way to do that is to just keep practicing at it. And most people don't sharpen tools or sharpen knives as often as I do. So you might want to invest, and I know this seems counterintuitive, but you might want to invest a little bit more money into this. Like, about $140 more money into this by getting a guided honing system. Now there are some cheaper ones, like for 50 bucks I think you can get the Lansky guided honing system. For like 80 something bucks I think Work Sharp has a Ken Onion version of it. That either might be with a belt or it might be like a guided honing system. But what I use and what I recommend is this Apex Edge Pro. Now the reason I recommend this one is because the change between one knife to the other is very, very quick. It's very economical for what it is. This I think was a total 150 bucks, this whole kit, plus a little C clamp, which I think was another 20 bucks. Before we go over the guided angle system or anything like that, I'm going to show you guys how to sharpen a knife on just this very, very cheap diamond block. You can also use like Arkansas whetstones like this one right here. This one is up to 1,000 grit. You can also use what's called a sharp pebble, I believe. Yeah, sharp pebble. It's pretty cheap on Amazon. It only lasts for so long. As you can see, this divot, I need to flatten this back out before I start using it again. But this one is a dual grit. It has 1,000 and 6,000. Whenever you're using diamond plates, you want to use water with a little bit of like Dawn dish soap or whatever dish soap you use in there, and that's going to act as like a little bit of a lubricant. And you're going to want to keep these wet. Whenever you let them dry out or anything like that, then you start having issues with just over wear on your plate itself. It's not good for your plate necessarily. Whenever you have a dull knife, a super dull knife, you want to start on your lowest grit and you're going to progress through the grits. The first thing I'm going to do is mark the edge with a Sharpie marker. There you go. Just like that. And I'm going to let it dry a little bit because I don't want it just prematurely wearing off or anything like that. And then I'm going to get my honing block wet, nice and wet. And I'm going to lay my knife flat on the block. And I'm going to raise up this spine right here until my edge starts making contact with the stone. Now I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of passes, and then I'm going to check the Sharpie mark that I made earlier to see if I'm getting close to the edge, if I'm hitting the edge, or if I'm overshooting the edge. And as I pull back, my wrist is locked, and I'm going to lift up my elbow as I get closer to the tip. I think I'm in contact with the edge. I'm going to do a couple passes, and I'm going to lift up my elbow as I pull back to account for the curve towards the tip of the knife. And you can see the scratch pattern right there, the very, very edge. So I'm lifting up a little bit too high. So I'm going to take that into account, and then I'm going to do this again. And do it a couple more times so it's a little bit more evident. There we go. There's my scratch pattern. Now, I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to go back and forth, usually an equal number of times, and I'm going to keep doing that until I create what's called a burr. So let me go ahead and create a burr, and then I'll try to get you guys to see it on camera. There we go. So we've gotten ourselves a burr. Now, you're going to be able to feel it more than you're going to be able to hear it or see it. Now you can take your nail, and you see how it's, I don't know if you can hear that. It's clicking, my nail is catching on the edge of the knife. That is the burr. So I need to go to the other side. That lets me know. And you want to also make sure that you feel the burr along the entire edge of the knife, just not just in spots. And lets me know that I have brought this side of the edge towards, like it's a clean contact between the two sides. I hope that makes sense. But now what I'm going to do is do the other side. Now you have a couple different options here. You can either switch hands and learn how to do it, you know, in your left hand. If you're right-handed, that might be a bit of a challenge. Either way, if you switch hands, it's going to be a challenge. But this is where the Sharpie comes into play. So I can see there, I'm on my mark. I'm removing paint or removing Sharpie along the entire length of the blade. Depending on the knife, I will switch. If it's my carving knives and stuff like that, then I'll usually keep them both, or keep them in the same hand the entire time. If I'm doing chef knives, for some reason I'll switch hands. I don't know why. It might be the length of the knife actually. With just a couple passes, I've pushed the burr to the other side. So now that I know I've done that, I'm going to switch to a higher grit. The next highest grit is 300. So I'm going to switch it on over to the 300 grit side, and I'm going to repeat this process the entire time. I'm just going to progress. Like I'm going to push the burr back over to the other side with this 300 grit. Then I'm going to switch sides and do the same thing again. And then after that, I'm going to progress to the next grit. So I'll pick this back up after I've gotten to the 600 side, and then I'll show you the final step for this Moore knife. All right, so a couple of tips while you're sharpening. A few things to keep in mind. Your tip you have to give extra attention to. For some reason, it's just a common thing that usually by the time you get to the end of the tip, it's just shortest part of your stroke. And it's also the part that comes in with the least amount of, comes in contact with the least amount of grit. Another thing is pull away from the edge, don't push towards the edge. If you push towards the edge, it's definitely a possible technique. You can definitely learn how to do it. It's just whenever you're first starting, you're going to be catching that edge into the diamond plate, either ruining the diamond plate or the knife itself, or especially if you have whetstones. You can start chipping those pretty quickly if you're pushing towards the edge and you don't have enough muscle memory to really achieve that well. So I have progressed through the grits. I have a burr on this side of the knife. So what I'm going to do is switch over to my leather strop. I'm just going to wipe the water off this knife so I don't get my leather wet or anything like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it, keep the same angle that I had on the whetstone, and I'm going to pull it 10 times on each side. After that 10, I'm going to do 3 times on one side, 3 times on the other side, 2 times on one side, 2 times on the other side, and 1 time on one side and 1 time on the other side. And that will complete the stropping process after I have sharpened. That's considerably sharper than it was before I started. Yep, shaven sharp. Let's see if I can show you on camera. So hopefully you can see the hairs disappearing. Not very often do I have this much hair on my arm, to be honest. But there we go. Went from a rusty, dull Moore knife to a shaving, sharp Moore knife pretty quickly. All right. So now I'm going to show you guys the guided angle honing system. And this is the full setup right here. There's the stand itself. There's this arm, which is adjusted by this little pivot point right here. Now, the yellow line is usually where I like to sharpen most of my pocket knives at. I've just done it enough times and I know the yellow line is a pretty good angle for most of my pocket knives. It matches most of the angles on my pocket knives. This is the White River caper that I usually carry appendix right here in there like that. It's very, very dull. So we're going to go ahead and adjust that. We're going to change that, I mean. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I have the right angle. So to find the angle, I put the Sharpie on the edge of my knife, and I'm going to pick a very, very low grit. This is the 250 diamond grit stone. I'm going to do a couple passes, and there we go. The Sharpie marker is completely removed, so I know that's the perfect angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this enough times over and over. Well, I'm going to do this a few times on this side and check to see if I have a burr. And I do have a burr. This is a 250 grit diamond stone. It's going to remove material pretty quickly. Now I'm going to flip it to the other side. And push the burr back over. And we've achieved that. I'm going to double check on the other side to make sure the burr is down the entire length of the edge. Yep, it's on the entire length, and then just to even it up, I'm going to do it on this side one more time. Now this system is faster if you have a lot of knives to go through. If you just have one knife to sharpen, then the freehand version is faster once you have the muscle memory down. After you have that down, then it's way faster. So now that I've pushed the burr back and forth a few times, I'm going to switch and progress up to a higher grit stone. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to push the burr back and forth and remove the previous scratch pattern of the previous grit. Just a couple passes, check. I do have a burr, so I'm going to flip over to the other side. All right, so I've pushed the burr back and forth on this knife. The next thing and final thing I'm going to do to this knife is strop it. Now, one thing I failed to mention before with the stropping is that if you do this often enough, that limits the amount of times that you have to go back and sharpen. If you can straighten the edge, which is what honing is doing, is removing the burr and straightening the edge. If you can do that frequent enough, you won't have to sharpen it nearly as often as you would if you just avoided the strop completely. You can overstrop. There is a little bit of give to leather. So if you do it too much, it will eventually curve. Instead of having an edge, it will eventually curve over a little bit. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm going to shave with it with a little bit of hair. Bam, it's sharp again. Wow, this is very sharp. Well, if you can't see the hair come off, you can see it on the edge of this knife. So now that we've taken care of the knives, we're going to move on to the machete, which is literally just a bigger, wider angled knife. Now, keep in mind what you're going to do with your machete. Most of the time, you're going to be hacking and slashing at something with your machete, so you don't want a very thin angle. You want a very wide angle, considering the task it's actually doing. Now, another cool thing about this Edge Pro Apex sharpening system is that you can sharpen your machete with it as well. Now you're going to need to raise the angle up quite a bit. Let me just see where that is. And also keep in mind, like, your machete doesn't need anywhere near a fine of grit as this. This is like the 120 grit. You can literally do this with a file. You can sharpen your machete with a file. But before I show you that, I'm actually going to show you just how easy it is with the machete. Now I'm running into the vise over here on this side, so I'm having to change it a little bit, but it's literally this simple with a machete on this system. Like, it definitely fits. If this vise wasn't here on this side, then this would be working like a dream. As you can see, you can use this for very, very large knives as well. So if it works for a machete, it's definitely going to work for your larger kitchen knives. I don't know what the deal is, but most machetes come with a safety edge. They come very, very dull. Like, you couldn't cut yourself no matter how much you sawed with it or whatever. The fix for it is actually pretty simple. The easiest way to do it, take your tip, stab it into something that's not dirt or whatever, and take a bastard file and just go down the edge until you see, and this is where that Sharpie would come in handy again, so you can get a nice big mark. I'm just going to follow this with a bastard file and remove the Sharpie. Another way to do it is just to set it on your lap. Like I said before, the same applies with the machete. Give the tip extra attention because it does get neglected in this whole process. Now, I'm going to do the other side, which I can either put the tip in again, and careful because you are cutting towards the edge, so you don't want to catch your fingers on there. But I'm just doing the exact same thing on this side. Till I get to the tip. And then work my way back down. And then after I've done both sides, I'm gonna once again check for a burr. Now, I don't feel one yet, so I'm gonna do this whole process over again. And now I feel a burr. Now, with this being a machete, the edge does not have to be as perfect as a knife edge does. So to remove the burr, all I'm gonna do is find some end grain of wood and drag the edge through a few times. There we go. That is a sharpened edge of a machete. Now, whenever you go out and use the machete, bring a file with you, and then you can always just touch up the edges every few swings. Nothing crazy. I mean, not every few swings, but like if you notice that there's a decrease in the cutting power, then go ahead and touch it up with the file real quick. And just like that, it's back to new. And then if you can, run it along some end grain if you can, and that'll help straighten the edge back up and remove the burr. So there you go. Machetes are super, super simple and easy. It's just ridiculous that they send them with a safety edge. Now, of course, I have to show you how well this edge does now. Say that's doing pretty good. Quick little side note, a lot of people hate using machetes because honestly they don't know how to use them. It shouldn't be like a full-blown swing or anything like that. It should just be a flick. If you can flick your wrist and it's still not cutting, then sharpen your edge. Now, last but not least of this video is the axe right here. What I'm going to first do, like I did the rest of them, is mark the edge. Now, if your axe is in really, really bad shape, then you're gonna wanna do this step first. So I'm gonna take my axe and I'm gonna have it face, the edge face me, going this way, and I'm gonna clamp this guy down. And then I'm gonna take the rag and I'm gonna fold it up maybe 2 or 3 times at first, and I'm gonna lay it on the head of the axe. And I'm gonna use that as a pivot point and as an angle keeper, and I'm gonna take my file and just run it along the edge of the axe. And I'm gonna check the Sharpie to see where it's rubbing off. And as you can see, my Sharpie is right here on the edge and I'm rubbing up above that. So what I'm gonna do is fold my towel over, my rag over a couple more times, and that'll raise the angle and hopefully start removing it from the edge. And if you run out of rag to fold, then just move it closer to the edge until you find the angle you need. There we go. And that's the correct angle. And I'm just gonna reprofile this edge because it has a lot of, it's gotten a little wonky over the time I've used it. There's a couple of nicks I need to get out and stuff like that. So I'm using this file first with the rag method, and I'm making sure it's removing material along the edge. And I'm gonna make sure I have a burr on that side, and then I'm gonna go back to the other side and create a burr on that side. Now I'm going to switch the axe over, and I'm gonna keep the same number of folds in this towel, and I'm gonna do this side. And all I'm doing is creating a burr, getting out any nicks and stuff like that out on this side. Now to finish it off, what I'm going to use is this puck. Now, if your edge wasn't in horrible shape to begin with, then you can just start with this puck. And I'm going to add some of my, you can use kerosene, you can use diesel. I use some of this synthetic care oil on the face of the puck. There's a rough side and a smooth side. Start with your rough side and then move on over to your smooth side. This is my rough side here, and I'm starting on the side that has the burr. And I'm just gonna, in a circular motion, make sure my stone is coming in contact with the edge as I look down the edge. And all I'm doing is pushing the burr back over to the other side. There we go, the burr moved. Now, going back to the other side, and this seems to be the easiest way for me to hold it, is to put the axe in my shoulder, hold that. And this is easier than it looks because I'm looking at the edge and making sure the stone has contact, like flat contact with the edge. And I've created a burr again. So now I'm going to switch over to the smooth side. There we go. And then once I feel the burr back over on that side, what I'm going to do with this again is find some end grain and run the edge through. Or I can take my strap block, and I can just run it through the edge of this a few times, and then go to the other side, do it again. There we go. And then feel to see if I have a burr on either side. I don't. Let's see if I can actually shave with this machete, or not this machete, but this axe. And I'm shaving. I don't know if you can see those hairs on there, but it's shaving. I'm out of hair on this arm. I'll just take a few swings at this. So there we go, y'all. Just like that, you now know how to sharpen an axe, a machete, and whatever knife you might be using or carrying or anything like that. The principles are basically the same. Just keep a consistent angle, no matter what it is, no matter how you do it, either freehand or with a guided system. Repeat the process over and over again until you have formed a burr. Once you have formed the burr, push it back over to the other side and then progress through the grits. So start with your lowest grit first and work your way up. Once you've hit the end of your grits, or however high you want to go, you then remove the burr. There's a couple different ways you remove the burr. I showed you with some end grain. Just drag your edge through, or do that over and over again. Or you can use this strap block, which is easily and cheaply made. And it's really just that simple, guys. I think a lot of people mess up with the patience, making sure that they've created a burr, because if you're not sure, if you're not very good at it yet, you're not sure how much pressure to be applying. You can use too much pressure. You can use too little pressure. So there's that. That's not really something I can teach you. You just have to practice. That's another thing that comes in handy with this guided system. I don't make any money from this, y'all, so I'm not like trying to oversell you on it. I'm just saying it really cuts out the guesswork and the if it's not something you like doing, then it makes it go by a lot faster, and you can do all your knives in the house all in one time, like once a month or something like that, depending on your usage. But it's not that hard, y'all. It's not that difficult. Just takes practice. Don't give up too quickly. And if you're sharpening over and over again and then your knife is just disappearing, contact me. Maybe I can help you guys. If you want discounted tickets to the Kentucky Sustainable Living Festival, hit the links down below. I got a little code down there. It's going to be written right next to the link, and it'll give you the percentage that's taken off and stuff like that. But it is a discount code for your tickets. I think it knocks it down to, well, I don't want to be lying on camera, but it knocks down your price quite a bit. So if you guys want those discount codes, hit the links down below. If you guys need consultations, or if you just need someone to sharpen your tools for you, then email me down below. It's all linked down below. Thank you guys so much for your time. We'll see you.